One thing we often say about museums and digital technology is that museums will use it more and more and will notice it less and less. In a way, that's digital maturity. Technology changes essence of what a museum is, and that's happening with digital.
We know that in today's world, a lot of people's first touch point of arts and cultural institutions are online even before they visit in person. And so if we provide people with access to them online, it'll most likely encourage them to also visit these spaces.
One by One, officially, we describe it as a collaboration of cultural organizations, academics, professional bodies, government agencies, communities of practice, consultants, experts, thought leaders, who are all allying to help the museum sector adapt to a digital age, but also to have the confidence to adopt technology. What is it to be a museum worker in this century?
This project is about developing new directions in digital leadership in the museum sector. Although museums were created as colonial institutions to demonstrate power and domination, modern museums seek to be agents for social change. They strive to embrace the values of equity, diversity, and inclusion in their organizational structures, and also promote these values in society. These paradoxical issues compelled us to ask, how can digital leadership advance the museum's mission as an agent for social change? We assembled a diverse team of museum scholars and leaders to help us understand the intersection of museum, digital, diversity, inclusion, and social justice.
My name is Doretha K. Williams. I am the Center Director for the Robert F. Smith Center for the Digitization and Curation of African American History at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, Smithsonian Institute. What we do is to work with local communities, families, and institutions to help preserve local histories and to help digitally preserve those histories, as well as work with families to do more research on their genealogy. I also believe in preserving holistically. So we're not an organization that comes in just to digitize a collection, or we just want your photos from 1945. Like, we're going to digitize all of this, and then we'll work to think about what relationship we want or that institution wants with our group. So what we've been doing is to really institute that type of mentality and narrative of the community is who we serve first. Also, connectivity. One thing that we do, because we work in communities, we work with multiple institutions, and you'd be amazed how difficult it is for institutions down the street to work together and to find common ground. Institutions have different lines of funding, they have different cycles, different relationships with the community, surrounding community. So something that we like to do is to actually provide that space. How do we do that digitally? How do we make spaces for multiple institutions to share collections and share their narratives on digital platforms without the burden of building the platform, paying for the platform, staffing the platform, and making sure that there's an equitable representation and making sure those institutions can share their own narratives.
African American museums and others were created with a community-centered approach over a collection-centered approach from their onset, from their founding. And so recognizing the importance of community-centered approach has grown within the field. People want to see museums be relevant to their everyday experience, and that's really great. There's museums now who are engaging on women's rights and LGBTQ rights and, race issues. All of those things are important because this is things that people are experiencing in their everyday life. And I think museums are taking that into account. And we see that when museums address issues, that those exhibitions and those programs get the most attendance and interest, and not just for clickbait or a kind of cool thing to do. I think overall it's important to show that things that are happening in our everyday experience are part of history, is also art, is also culture.
I was really inspired by the way certain museums are using the internet in order to smash down previously held ideas of museum expertise and who is the expert, and enabling really experimental, all-encompassing forms of expertise. All different people making the contents of the museum rather than just one or two people making the contents of the museum. And that's what digital participation is enabling, this kind of level of access and engagement that's never before been possible. Digital work in the museum is an avenue for us to thinking in much more radically egalitarian ways about how we truly work with everyone across the globe, whether or not they can walk into a physical museum building or not, whether they're experiencing it online. I believe that the work that we did as part of One by One has revealed a very human, effective side of digital work within museums and heritage organisations, that it is not just machines and people operating those machines, that people come first, it's technology second. And I hope that we've built on work that others have done as well in terms of linking up digital technology with other radical changes that need to happen within cultural workplace environments around decolonising collections, about rethinking use of certain language, about thinking about the climate emergency, about loads of other types of change. I think from One by One, I have learned that digital technology is hugely interlinked with how we're thinking about these other kind of global challenges we're facing. Yeah, and we're sitting on the top of an iceberg here that needs unpicking a lot more.
The outcomes of the research will be published in an open access book that highlights some strategies to overcome existing challenges to museum digital leadership. What is important to note is that museums with employees and digital teams that have a high sense of proactive social responsibility, coupled with digital literacy and confidence, are positioned to lead the future of museum digital.